They told us war would make men out of boys. They told us glory had a sound. The crack of the rifle, the roar of the crowd, the anthem echoing through the valleys. They lied. I was 17 when I enlisted, too young to grow a beard, too old to be a child. I remember the morning I signed my name, the ink trembling, not from pride, but from the cold. The recruiter smiled like a preacher. He said we'd be home by Christmas. He said the war would be short. He said we'd be heroes. We believed him. God help us, we believed every word. The town square smelled of pipe smoke and wet horses. Flags waved from every porch. Mothers cried and clapped at the same time. I remember my mother's hands, trembling on my shoulders, her eyes hollowed out by something she didn't say. She knew. All mothers do. The first march felt like a parade. We sang, we joked, we carried the weight of our rifles like toys. The roads were endless dust, and the world smelled like summer wheat and sweat. We laughed about courage, about how we'd take Richmond or Washington by sundown. But when the first coffin came back wrapped in a flag, the song stopped. By the time we reached camp, the air had changed. No longer home, no longer safety, just a sea of tents. 1,000 men pretending not to be afraid. The nights were colder than I'd ever known. The ground was hard and unforgiving. When you closed your eyes, you could hear the coughs, the wheezing, the quiet sobs muffled by blankets. And above it all, the drums. Always the drums, like the heartbeat of something dying slow. The first battle came before dawn. The fog was thick like breath on glass. You could taste the iron in the air before the shooting started. When the cannon spoke, the ground shook. The man beside me vomited before we even saw the enemy. Then the orders came. Forward. The musket felt heavier than I remembered. My hands trembled, my knees locked. And yet I moved, not from courage, but from the strange gravity of fear. Once you start walking toward death, stopping feels worse. The first bullet didn't sound like thunder. It sounded like a bee. Then another, then 100. The world became a storm of lead and smoke. Men screamed, fell, vanished into the dirt. One man's head burst open beside me, like an apple dropped from too high. Another clawed at his throat, gasping for a name that never came. The smell, blood, gunpowder, mud, it seeps into your soul and never leaves. When I fired my musket, I didn't aim. You never do. You just point at the fog and hope the sound means something. When it's over, when the smoke clears, you realize you've killed men you never saw. By midday, the field was no longer a field. It was a graveyard in the making. Bodies lay twisted like roots after a storm. The wounded moaned until their voices broke. We walked among them, not as soldiers, but as ghosts who hadn't realized they were dead yet. That night, I buried 3 of my friends. We had no shovels, only bayonets. The earth was wet and heavy with blood. I remember thinking how strange it was, that soil could smell like iron. When the moon rose, we sat in silence. One man tried to pray, but his voice cracked like glass. Another laughed. A strange, broken laugh that turned into a sob. We didn't stop him, because in that moment, laughter and madness were the same thing. Winter came early that year. We ran out of food before we ran out of bullets. Salt pork turned to mold. Bread turned to stone. We boiled leather straps, ate rats, and drank rainwater when we could find it. Some men died not from bullets, but from hunger and the cold. Frostbite took fingers, then feet. Dysentery took the rest. Every morning, you'd wake to find someone gone, stiff in his blanket, eyes open, staring at nothing. We didn't even dig graves anymore. The ground was too hard. We just laid them by the tree line and hoped the snow would cover their faces. The letters stopped coming from home. Some were lost in battle, others just never written. It's strange how quickly you forget what your own handwriting looks like. Disease crept through the camp like a whisper. You'd hear a cough one night. By morning, the man was gone. No gunfire, no enemy, just the slow, invisible rot of life itself. We stopped believing in glory. We stopped believing in God. The only thing left was the sound. The endless sound of drums and the distant cry of crows. They always came after battle, those crows. They never missed a feast. One night, I found myself staring at the stars, wondering if men on the other side of the line were doing the same. Maybe they were. Maybe the war wasn't about right or wrong anymore. Maybe it was just about who could endure the longest. We became hollow men, shells filled with smoke and memory. We moved, we loaded, we fired, we reloaded. Not for the flag, not for the cause, but because stopping would mean thinking. And thinking would kill us faster than a bullet ever could. I don't remember the battle that killed me, only the silence that followed. They say when death comes, it's quick. That's not true. It's slow. It unravels you thread by thread. I remember falling. The mud was warm, almost comforting. Someone screamed my name, or maybe I just imagined it. The sky was grey, the colour of old steel. Rain began to fall, washing the blood into the earth. I remember thinking, so this is it. This is what all the noise was for. When the pain faded, the world became still. The birds returned first, then the wind, and then nothing. They buried me with the rest. No marker, no name, just another boy who thought war was a song. My bones sank into the soil that history would later call sacred. But there's nothing sacred about blood, only silence. Now I linger where the battle once raged. A ghost, not of vengeance, but of memory. I see the fields turned into monuments, the flags waving where we once fell. People come, they take pictures, they whisper about courage, but they don't smell the blood. They don't hear the screams beneath the soil. You can't honor what you don't understand, and no one alive truly understands what it cost to be a soldier here. Freedom was the word we died for, but in truth, none of us were free. We were bound by orders, by fear, by hunger, by the illusion that dying could mean something. Now the cannons are gone, the flags faded, and only the earth remembers. If you listen closely on a still morning, you might hear us, the sound of boots on distant ground, marching nowhere. Because war doesn't end when the guns stop. It ends when the living forget the dead, and they always do.